5 mistakes single women make that break their relationship. Hi, I'm Antia, founder and creator of the Magnetize Your Man method. And we are here, of course, doing our Magnetize Your Man online summit. And today we have Dr. Gary Salyer. Hey, Dr. Gary.
Hey, Antia. Nice being back.
So excited to have you here and to really dive much deeper into the mistakes that single women make without even knowing about it. And before we go there, I just want to go briefly into like who Dr. Gary is. So he is a transformational relationship mentor. For the last decade, Dr. Salyer has been in private practice offering singles and couples heart-centered transformation so they can rewrite the rules for love in their brains and create a love that lasts. Dr. Gary speaks to a national audience as a featured expert on various celebrity TV and radio shows such as Hay House Radio and Coast to Coast AM. He is the author of the groundbreaking book, Safe to Love Again, How to Release the Pain of Past Relationships and Create the Love You Desire. And he also has this new book coming up on how to stay in love as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. So excited to have you, Gary.
It's great being here. It's so good seeing you again. We've been good friends for a long time.
For a long time. And when we were talking, we were actually talking specifically about a decisive 6 seconds, right? That really determine whether you make a relationship or you break your relationship. So let's talk about like, what are those 6 seconds and what are the 5 mistakes that single women make within those potentially 6 seconds?
Okay. So, the big framework for this is we hear a lot of talk when, I know you do a lot with attachment. Obviously, I wrote a book on attachment where we talk about big picture. Are you anxious? Are you avoidant? Are you secure? Maybe disorganized, right? You've got these big honking pictures, right? And it's like looking at the whole horizon, right? But what really makes or breaks a relationship are what I call the 6-second moments. It's little tiny moments that make or break the relationship. And too many people are looking at big patterns or maybe a big long set of list or whatever, and they're not noticing the little moments that we make or break connection. And it happens in little tiny ways. The first part of this is, one, are you present in the moment? And that means, that actually means making eye contact. A lot of times, these little moments happen, like with one couple I was working with, they couldn't understand why they kept getting into big fights. And what was happening, and it happened to be the husband, because he had an enmeshed mother, his way of dealing with things early on in life was to look away, to break that connection because of an intrusive mother. So every time he would listen fine, but when he was making his point, he would always look down and he would spend his whole time looking down here, never keeping eye contact. One, she feels disconnected. And two, he doesn't see the moment her eyes go back. That 6-second, I didn't know her head go back because I chose the wrong word and I can't rephrase it. That was the place. He didn't get the little moment, a little word went sideways, just a little word. It was one or two that just didn't land well with her. And in those 6 seconds, he lost it. Then she'd get angry. When we got him to be able to be present to the moment, to make eye contact and to see and to notice these little micro reactions, they come back in 2 weeks later and they say, my God, 80% of the arguments just magically went away. That's the power of a 6-second moment. That's the power. And the first rule is stay in the present and keep your eyes on them. Which
is so true, because research even shows, right, when we're not present, like we delete, I think up to 30% of the information that's being communicated in that particular moment. So can you imagine you and I be having a conversation and 30% are just like, what did you say, Gary? Or what was that again? Right? It's like, so not surprising that it can lead to moments like that.
Oh yeah. Studies have shown that 80% of attachment signals run through the face, mostly the eyes, some the mouth. And We know from a lot of other science that the autonomic nervous system actually broadcasts the state of your attachment system to other people, whether you're safe or not safe to approach, through your face. So if you're not zoned in on their face, you are listening to the very gift that Mother Nature has given you, which is their face to tell you what's going on in them. We're meant to zone in on our someone else's face so we can see the state that's inside of them. How can we love each other if we're not noticing what's going on inside? And so when people are not tuned in and really looking at eyes and mouth, that means, doesn't mean talking, about intimate things or arguments in a car looking straight at the road. It doesn't mean talking to them while you're looking at social media. It doesn't, and really not even on the phone. It means eye contact. Yeah, that's the first rule. And you just notice the little tiny moments, and that's the biggest thing is we're being trained by social media and a lot of technology to do something that's kind of not attachment friendly. We have so many ways of connecting that don't focus on the eyes.
Well, and then the other piece too, is like you mentioned indirectly, is almost like signaling to the other person that when you don't hold eye contact or you look down, that it's not safe to be with you in that moment, right? Or that you don't feel safe with the other person. And in that moment, of course, breaking rapport to the other person, which then, of course, deregulates the nervous system of the other person. And it's like, what? Like, did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Right. And then maybe they go also into their coping mechanism that they go into when they incur in uncertainty.
Yes, exactly. The face will tell you, the physiology will tell you exactly what's going on inside their brain. And if you can see that and what you're looking for, did their head go back? Did their eyes go big? Did you see this little squint that says maybe they're angry or they're sad? Or did their breathing stop? Or did their face go a little white? These are little moments that say, wait a minute, something I said didn't land right. I wonder, what needs to happen? And you make that little adjustment. Oh, did that word not land right, honey? No, that one didn't really land right. Well, what if I said it and I meant it like this? Oh, okay. Now you've made a repair. Mm-hmm. But you can't make a repair if you don't see it in real time. I mean, attachment it's all about attention and these little tiny moments, these little strings of moments, like, and if we're not in that moment, looking for the little things, not the big things, the little things. The big things are almost always the result of a string of little things that we pay for. So,
absolutely. So what's the second mistake that the single women make that really breaks the relationship in those 6 seconds?
Well, there's another one I think that happens is we play bumper cars with our different realities. So to speak. Okay. We all have reality. Okay. We all have reality. And it's important to define, how do we create reality inside? It's experience inside our brains. There's from neuroscience, we know, and this gets a little heady for only a minute, that our cortical brain, the part that makes meaning, we have all these little columns, and each column has 6 neurons. Now, the funny thing about this is the bottom 2 are feeding into the senses. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? And it checks in with your body too. What am I feeling? What's going on inside my body? Now, this is where it gets interesting for both couples. The top 2 are going back to what's called implicit memory, old memory that you may not even remember and often don't, but it tells you how to feel about certain categories of life. And it is always being fed in with now. The past is always being fed in with now. Now, that's a very good thing because it tells you how to recognize something. So when you go in your bathroom and you see this bowl with water, you don't think, I wonder what that's for. What if I can drink out of that? It tells you, it tells you that that blueberry that's one to eat. That red berry over there, maybe not so much. It also tells you, oh, that's a dog. But depending on whether you got bit by a dog or whether you had a nice snuggly little thing as a kid, it tells you how to feel. So no matter what's going on, there is no time when your past isn't be fed into what's now. There's no objective reality. It's always in a play. And the middle two are adding these together. So even if you and your spouse are looking at the same thing, both of you are being fed the past from different places. And there's no way that you can possibly see and feel and experience the same thing. And so trying to make this court of who's right, who's wrong, what you're trying to do is to make them wrong, and it doesn't work. What's better is to stop playing this emotional bumper cars that I see in a lot of couples. Well, that's not true. It's not about true. It's about, no, this is my experience. And being more and more aware, it's these sort of past events influence the meaning, his meaning, and you get curious about each other's meaning. You get curious about, wow, what's the backstory for that? And you stop saying, this is right, I'm right, you're wrong. You start saying, well, this is my experience. Gosh, what's yours? And hopefully they get curious back. If we stop playing emotional bumper cars and we start playing, emotional curiosity and understanding and empathy, that goes a lot of ways. But most people play bumper cars, assuming there's an objective reality. And I think and this happens in just little tiny moments, just noticing what part of the past is influencing your reality and getting curious what part is influencing this. This is what makes a couple last, when they get really good at curiosity and understanding, and they stop making each other think that being right is even possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And I agree with that with my husband, that even I'm always joking with my single women. I'm like, guys, even 8.5 years later, like I'm still saying, babe, so when you say that, like, what does that mean to you? Right? Because, to me, this means this, right? Or when you, have this kind of experience, like how's that showing up for you? And it's always surprising. Not so surprising, because I now know that it is going to be probably surprising answer.
Yeah.
That how he responds, that it's not something that I could necessarily like, oh, wow, I had no idea. One time I even asked, I said, when you wake up in the morning, like, what is it like to be Brody? Right. And he explained it to me. I was like, oh my God, I'm already exhausted listening. He said, well, what is it like to be Antia when you wake up in the morning? I was like, it's just spacious. And, like I'm having my tea and I'm not having a million questions in my head. You know what I mean? I don't. And, but it's so great, right? Because we have this we're sleeping in the same bed, we're living in the same house, we have the same business. So, there's like this assumption, oh, that must mean that we have like the same experience of reality, right?
Yes.
And we actually don't. So I could not agree with that more, Barry.
Yeah. Whether you're starting a relationship or you've got a long-term committed one, the question of who's right or who's wrong is who's cares. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares. Mm-hmm. It's how do you understand how you both make experience? Now that's a winning. That's how your brain makes it. That's how you. And so you stop playing emotional bumper cars with each other.
Totally. So what's the third mistake that single women make in those 6 seconds?
Well, this is what I call the Tony Awards. The Tony Awards is we are not tracking our tone of voice. And most couples, it's been suggested by some studies that couples are 90% of the time, when there's an argument, they're not responding actually to the actual linguistic comment, not the content. They're responding, you guessed it, to the tone. And it's all, you can also put in there, the physical presencing of the body. Again, and our attachment system is our vocal cords are connected to our attachment system through the autonomic nervous system. It too is broadcasting, not only the eyes and the facial, but the vocal. And it's meant to allow people to see what is the attachment experience, the relational experience. Is it safe, not safe in there? And if we broadcast, we got to watch our tones. If some people, have a higher pitch point when they get upset, now your spouse, if they had a mom that really got really upset when they did like this, if you could raise your voice, it could set off all the alarms and whistles in them. Brothers, it's a really deep voice. Maybe a really angry dad, which I can't, do that baritone quite the way I used to. Maybe I never did. But what couples forget is they go, well, I didn't say that. No, but your vocal cords did. You've got to be really aware of how your tone of voice is influencing your partner in a relationship or even on a date. And you also have to notice how theirs is affecting you. And it's okay to be able to say, honey, I really want to be able to hear what you say, but I'm having a hard time with a voice that tells me you may be angry. Can you say that with a different tone so I can hear what you're saying? It's okay to say that. Yeah.
And then, of course, it also depends on what I see with Brody and I. I grew up in a, verbally volatile household. And while Brody grew up in a, people are just pretty even keeled, like even if they're angry, it's not being like too, nobody's gonna yelling at each other. If they're yelling, it's gonna be super, super rare, right? It's gonna be a huge deal. And so that's the other piece too, is that in the moment where I just feel like I'm raising my voice, I'm just getting, I'm like, babe, if I would be screaming, you don't want to hear that,
Yes.
But for him, right, because he has a different ceiling, because that's also understanding like what different ceilings we actually have, depending on what background we come from, with like what tone of voice is, the normal voice for us versus like, danger. Because for me, it's like, I'm just a little annoyed, but it's not a big deal, right? For my husband's already, she raised her voice, right? We didn't do that in our household, right? When that happened, dad was racing after us and we were just hiding in the room, locking ourselves in because we knew this is just not good news.
Yes. And depending, that gets into my next point, depending on what you have experienced about the ability to repair in the past, pretty much bleeds into the present. So are you expecting to get on the other side of this relationship, and you'll this little faux pas, this misstep, and you're pretty confident, you have a knowingness that loads up automatically. Yeah, we're going to get through this. Or do you have a knowingness that says, oh no, hell just broke loose, and God knows how far this rabbit hole is going to go, and we're never going to survive. You grew up in a place where you didn't expect proper attuned repair of the relationship. Brody did. So you have to be able to navigate that, and that really gets to the fourth point is, noticing that all the flow of connection, disconnection, and then reconnection in a relationship. You got to notice the flow. This whole idea that you're going to be happily married ever after, no, not quite there. That we know from attachment work, and specifically Edtronics work, that 70% of the time, couples are in a state where they're not actually in a flow with connection. There's some form of disconnection, or maybe a disconnection that's been repaired. Only about 30% of the time are couples in a place where they're truly connected. What a lot of people don't tell us is in these small moments, notice the small moments when the connection went away. We need a connectometer, so to speak. And you got to manage these moments where you notice, wait a minute, we're not having a connection. And to not freak out about it. This is normal. This is how you learn what intimacy is. It's learning, wow, who knew you could think like that? Who knew you could feel like that? Wow. And then saying, I wonder how I can make a repair. How do we get back our connection? What's the move? What's the little move made? Like, I'm sorry, hon, that was insensitive how I said that, right? Or, gosh, honey, you look a little scared. What's going on inside of you? Getting curious. But, for the couple, the average couple, about a third of the time, you're connected. You're making bids and responding back and forth. And another third, you have missed a bid and don't even know you did it. You have stepped in it all the way, not up to your ankle, but up to your neck, and you don't even know it, right? And you come home and go, what's going on, right? And then there's a third where you're living on the other side where you have made some type of repair. And a repair doesn't mean you necessarily have learned to agree, but you have learned to agree and disagree. That can be a form of repair too. So you got to notice, where are you at any given moment, any given 6 seconds? Where are we in that natural flow? And just say, oh yeah, we're a couple. Oh, so what? Are we connected in this moment? Being a couple doesn't mean anything. Oh, we're in a state of disconnection. Oh, okay, we're in a state where we have had some disrepair, but we've gotten back. So harmony, disharmony, reharmony, it's noticing where we are. And you got to have that connectometer. Okay, what's the signal strength between us? It's kind of like Zoom. Are we getting those little white bars? Are we getting the yellow bars? Are we getting the red bars? When we're about ready to lose a video or something, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's also really understanding, because sometimes it's safe if both people have like an avoidant aspect inside of themselves. So if they're like more prone to, let's say, leave their body, because they both didn't feel like safe to be in their body, right? Yes. Like it can even like take some time for both or one to even recognize, oh, wait a minute, I'm coming back from my whatever dimension I was just in. And I'm like, wow, I didn't, okay, hi. And so that's like also a piece too, like understanding where's my partner going when they're disassociated or when they're under high levels of stress, right? That has nothing to do with me, but just with a high level of complexity in their life, for example.
Yeah. And and that leads actually to the fifth one is when you're looking at all of this, you need a good temperature gauge. What's the temperature? Because there's a Goldilocks zone. I have plants out back, right? That they like a certain temperature, right? And this relates directly to attachment. For the anxious, they tend to they come in a little hot. they come in anxious. It's like and the where are you at? Did you love me? Do you still love me? And they tend to heat the thing up with drama, right? Or constant worry and fret, or constant bids for attention. That's a little more than's needed. I can remember it was almost a shocking thing I was dealing with. She was anxious. He was a little avoidant, not a lot. He was, but a little bit, but very professional job. And she would text him 60 times a day at work. And she said to me, he only responded 30 days. This is what it feels like when you're married to an avoidant. I mean, no, he only responded 30 out of my 60 times, and this is what it feels like to be an avoidant. I go, whoa. She's now notice that attachment theory is being focalized through the anxious attachment. And 30 times in a day for a guy at an 8-hour job that's professional, in which he was being called on the carpet for interruptions. Yeah, now that's, she was heating it up. Now, on the other hand, the avoidants they put you on the frozen tundra. Things get too cold, right? and honey, I texted you 3 times telling you that the test came out bad from the doctors, and you didn't respond. Well, I thought I'd deal with it when we got home. No, she needed a response right then, right there, they're in that little moment. Well, you know, I can deal with it when I'm home. That's, you know, now you're lowering the temperature. You know? And in secure love, there's a Goldilocks zone. And part of knowing the connection is, are we coming in too hot? Are we coming too cold? Are we coming in too close, too distant? There's that beautiful Goldilocks that we have to notice this in little tiny moments. The moment was a, you know, what was it, a 6-second decision to decide not to respond to that third text message? It's that little tiny moment, right? You know, and sometimes, you know, he says, well, you know, I'm really busy. I said, you know, sometimes I will just tell him, I said, you know, okay, so let me, you know, there's something called enlightened self-interest. You can do that, but it's the long route to the bedroom. You know, it's a very long route. Oh, you've got to, you know, there's got to be a reasonable, attuned, and timely response. You know, both of those are examples of too hot, too cold. Somewhere in the middle is about right. And it always happens in these little tiny moments, you know. And I've gotten over the years more and more attuned to, you know, yes, there are patterns, but those patterns always show up in wee little moments that are like the same shape as the big patterns. Think of it like Russian dolls. The little tiny moments get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, but they all look the same. Yeah, like Russian doll moments. Yeah.
I actually was like bringing an example, not about that exactly, also with my clients with the Russian dolls, because there's so many metaphors you can use with them, right? Yeah. But it's so true, you know, to really see like, okay, what actually makes my partner feel safe, right? So also understand like that when somebody has like a more dismissive or like disassociation, you know, it also means, oh, wow, they don't feel safe, somebody entering their energy field, right? So like, how can I, not like tiptoeing around for sure, like not walking on eggshells, but how can I be just like, you know, increasing my sensory acuity, right? Like, how can I tune more so that I actually feel like, oh, hey, maybe right now it's not the best time. I know that with Brody, right? Like, I can feel when his energy feels like really big and he's just in his world. And I'm like, I could come in, but I wouldn't really serve him. It wouldn't really serve me, right? Or I can wait until he comes to me in like whatever, 2 hours, right? And I have the focused presence that you were talking about in the first mistake that women make, right? Like it's so deciding, and then I have the full connection versus sort of like that partial connection where both are pretending, right? Like, you know, I don't want to, you know, think that, you know, that I neglect Antia, that, you know what I mean? And I, you know what I mean? And I need something, and I, you know, so it's just like this kind of back and forth, but actually saying, well, does it actually make sense right now to connect, or are we both really attuned? So I think that's also really important as well, because I think there's like a little bit, especially for my women who are like more the anxious attachment style, there's almost like sort of like a vindictizing energy towards the avoidant, and there's not a lot of compassion to that part. And then also, by the way, to your own part too, because most women that come to me, they're actually like anxious avoidance. So it's like, hey, by the way, you get to be with that with yourself too.
Yeah. You know, what you're talking about, we're just going to throw in a 6th bonus one. Okay. A 6. And with couples, and I have learned this the hard way working with couples, is I call it switching. They don't switch into the other person. They stay on their own map. And they don't actually leave themselves to step inside the other for just a hit of what it feels like. It's like I draw 2 circles. Most couples, they stay each in their own circle, right? But the art is to know when you're in self mode, but then to leave yourself behind just long enough to switch in to get a pure hit of what they feel like, what their map is. Now, you can't do empathy and attunement so long as you're on your own map, because you're only listening on to what those, you know, what we've just talked about before. There's an art and to, in any given moment, to switch in long enough in that, you know, in that 5-minute conversation. Oh, you had a bad day. What was that like for you? And just not think, well, I wonder how I would feel in there. No, just totally switch in. Now, for an avoidant, that doesn't feel very good at all. you know. Yes. And sometimes the anxious can switch in too much, or the anxious can be so preoccupied with what they're doing, they really can't hear the love that the other person is trying to communicate with them. But it's important to be able to leave yourself, get on their map. Now, when a couple is going to then do conflict management, or then you go back into the middle where you have a little bit of self and a little bit of switching inside of them. And from there, the two people can navigate a conflict because you got a little bit of them and a little bit of you. Now, and if both people have a little bit of each other and they've stepped in an understanding way, that's called friendship. That's called attunement. That's called love. And too many people, these little moments, they stay in themselves, especially like, with one couple, I remember, she made an apology and he goes, okay, I accept your apology, and then launched right into the next grievance rather than just switching in and going, wow, she was really sorry. He stayed on his map of grievances. And I had to say, look, you've got to be able to acknowledge that. Step into her and notice she feels sorry. And you know what? The next grievance didn't feel so big. I could let that go. The reason he couldn't let it go is he stayed in his own little circle of pain and grievance. But when he steps into this beautifully attuning spouse of his who had learned some new skills, oh, she does love me. Pretty soon, stepping out and stepping into them, either to understand them or even to receive what they have, that's gold. And it happens in little tiny moments. So if we're going to talk about lasting love, it's these little tiny moments. That's where real love is born and raised.
Absolutely. And so I know we're already at the end, Gary. So for the women who are like, wow, this was amazing, that took like ferocious notes, and who want to like engage more with your content, like what is your free gift that you have for them?
Well, I have something called Dr. Gary's Guide to Lasting Love. And there's 3 versions of it. It's a little, love journey. And there's one for anybody who is afraid to date, those who are dating and can't find the one, and those who are couples or you're in a relationship and you want to make it better. And you go to, GarySalyer.com/love guide. And the link will be here. And the cool thing is you get to choose where you're at and where you want to go to. And it's all about lasting love, some really cool videos. And I talk about many of these things on there in a little more depth.
So exciting. So like Gary said, ladies, the link is right below this video. Gary, thank you so much for being here today. And I always love to engage with your content and try it on and see how it fits in my own life, how it applies to, of course, the women that show up as well. And for the ladies, I will talk to you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.